Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm John Barban. With me is Geoff Dover, and let's talk football.
I'm back, baby. I was in the portal for a bit. I was looking for more NIL money, and
What kind of loyalty is that?
I'm super happy to be here, and want to win with this team for the next couple weeks. So thanks for having me back.
Couple weeks, yeah. That's the type of commitment we get with the portal nowadays. All right.
Today we're going to be talking about Derek Carr. Just announced that he's officially retiring. Was a QB for a sneaky long time when you looked at it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I had some ideas as to how to approach this, but I think we're going to do a post-mortem on his career. And given your expertise, for those of you who don't know, Dover has a PhD in athletic training, and shoulder actually is one of your specialties, no? Like some of the research you did?
The initial studies we did around the shoulder. We haven't done shoulder-specific stuff in a long time, but yeah, initially It was, yeah.
All right. And Derek Carr's, what seems to be his career-ending injury was a shoulder injury. So
Correct.
We pulled up this cool website that documents his entire career of injuries. So let's just walk through the injuries before we get into the contract stuff and all that stuff.
Sure.
All right. Well, okay. So if we want to do a quick review of his injury history for all 11 years, in 2014, he had a bruised rib, no big deal, but also a concussion I think it was in the same game. Then also in 2014, a high ankle sprain and an MCL sprain in his knee. And then in 2015, a sprained finger, his ring finger. And then he also, I think, broke his thumb at some point in that season as well. So, and these are on his throwing hands. None of these things really kept him out of games, but it's just, we're going to kind of tell you the story of how beat up these guys actually get over time. Then he dislocated a finger in 2016 and broke his fibula in 2016, which is the non-weight bearing bone in your shin.
Mm-hmm.
So like the big one, your actual shin bone, that's the tibia, right? And then the fibula is a smaller one on the outside.
Yep.
So you can actually play through a broken fibula too, but that ended his season, but it was week 16. So no big deal there. Then 2017, fractured a vertebrae in his back. Kind of sounds serious, but only missed one game, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so this is where it starts to get bad. This is where the shoulder problems start coming in. September 2023, he sprained his AC joint in his shoulder. So maybe this is where we need you to kind of walk us through what an AC is and how this, to me, this is the beginning of the end of his career, is this sprained AC joint.
Yeah, so that's called the acromioclavicular joint. So that's when your shoulder, most people think about it's like a ball and socket joint, which is your humerus going with your scaphoid there, or the shoulder blade. But the AC joint is the collarbone coming over and attaching to the scapula. And so it's a sprain. It's like an ankle sprain. So it's just ligaments holding that bone together. And so the only thing where the AC joint would be a problem for the rotator cuff, because that's eventually what the problem was, is that the rotator cuff sits right underneath it. So if there was any like scar tissue or any things like osteophytes or something like that, that would narrow the space under the acromion, which might be more of a problem in the future for his rotator cuff.
Right. And the rotator cuff is just a collection of muscles.
Yep. So it's four muscles that go from the humerus, that hold the head of the humerus, like the shoulder socket, together.
And the humerus is this bone here.
Yep. Your arm bone. And so and the interesting thing also about the rotator cuff is that most people think you'd have to have a strong shoulder in order to throw the ball far. But the rotator cuff, the primary action is just stabilizing the joint. So you actually get most of your velocity with the football, like how much your shoulder rotation changes to your waist, and the force coming through the legs are really important. And the rotator cuff specifically just sort of holds on to the arm bone after you throw the ball. Because if you think about it, if you're throwing the ball like 90 miles an hour, your arm is going 90 miles an hour at that moment. And then as soon as the ball leaves the hand, now you have to slow the arm down, or else it's just going to come out of the socket. So that's actually what the rotator cuff is needed for, is to hold the arm back after you throw the ball.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking about little muscles. These are not big.
Four very small muscles.
All right. So that's where I think this thing starts to come unraveled for him, spraining his AC joint in September of 2023. But in that same injury, I think he also sustains another concussion. So if we're counting, I think that's already 3 concussions throughout his career here. Then in December 2023, he re-sprains it. it looks like, again. So that's not even a month. That's like a week or two apart. He sprains it again. And on that same game against the Lions, he gets another concussion. So we're talking sprain, concussion, sprain, concussion.
Yeah. So just to that point too, before you keep going, there's some emerging data that ties musculoskeletal injuries to concussions. So if you've suffered a concussion and then a second concussion, you're more likely to suffer some sort of musculoskeletal injury. So that was another reason why the concussion, like reducing concussions and making concussion rehab better, is more important now than it ever has been before, because there is an association with other injuries. So this idea of getting some sort of injury, concussion, then getting injured again, or at least more often. Now, he's also getting older. He's also playing a position that gets injured a lot. So it's hard to, but the point is that there is a relationship between concussions and like musculoskeletal injury, like ligament strains and muscle strains. So that's interesting that this is happening.
So we know there's a correlation. Do we have any guess at what it is? Is it playing less? Is he just less sharp in the moment? Or
that's a great question. We would have to ask a concussion person that. But there's some people, like at the end of the day, everything goes through the brain. Your awareness of your limb in space, the reflexes, a lot of stuff goes through there, and so it could be any number of things.
That's a good point. Could just be slightly slower on the reflexes.
Could be the vision. The vision's a big thing. So the vision, like you can't. It's the vestibular ocular motor reflex is a little bit different. You don't react to things as well. So like there's a lot of layers to it. It's hard.
And also everything's going 100 miles an hour in an NFL game, and you're always a fraction of a second away from getting hurt.
No, and this is but it's pretty robust data, because they've been keeping real track of injuries very accurately in the NCAA and NFL for a long time now, and there's a lot of people looking at the epidemiology of injuries and how to reduce them. That's where the whole kickoff thing changed with the concussions, because when they changed the kickoff, there's 40% reduction in concussions in kickoff. So like that's why they did that. So anyway, so just to get back to Carr, like that's having the alternating concussion and musculoskeletal injury. This is sort of one of the reasons when you get concussed, they're worried about CTE and head injuries, and rightfully so. But there is an association for an increase in musculoskeletal injury occurrence too. So,
and his progression matches that exactly. As he keeps getting concussed here, he keeps getting worse and worse musculoskeletal injuries.
Yep.
And then which peaks with the worst play of his career, and the play that did. I reviewed this play. So October 7th, 2024, October 7th, 2024, he sustains an oblique injury, which that's the muscles down the side of your butt. And that's bad. Those things take like a long time to heal. It didn't leave him out for any specific length of games here.
I thought it said 4 games. That's the October 7th one?
Does it say 4? Does it say he's out for 4 games? Oh, is that?
It's the middle column.
Oh yeah, games missed 4. So that's a lot. That's a lot with an oblique sprain. But some people, that can knock him out of a season. Yeah. Especially someone who has to throw the ball, because there's a lot of tension there when you're twisting. So that, again, here we go with the potential link between concussions. He just suffered a concussion the year before, and now this is happening again. And then the really bad one that I think ends his career here is on December 8th, week 14 against the Giants. Now, the important thing here is they're 4-8 at this point. This play, nothing matters at this point in the season. And if anyone remembers, he's trying to get a first down on a scramble along the sidelines, and he jumps sort of head first over one of his own players who's trying to block for him and the defender as he's flying Superman style out of bounds, just to try to catch a first down on week 14 of a 4-8 season. This yard does not matter. He lands on his face and on his outstretched arm, breaks his non-throwing hand, gets another concussion, and then does the shoulder in completely. And that's essentially now the end of his career.
Yep.
On a meaningless play, trying to get more yards in a meaningless season.
Yep. And the fall in the outstretched hand, that's right out of the textbook for, injuring your wrist, elbow, or shoulder. That's every athletic training book and every athletic therapy book in North America. Fall in an outstretched hand is right up the number one mechanism. Well, the most recognized mechanism for upper extremity injuries.
And then, so it says he has a labral tear. So what and some other degeneration.
Yeah, so I thought the key thing I saw in the ESPN article was the degenerative rotator cuff, really, right? So that's the four muscles, again, that we said before, that make up the rotator cuff, that hold the head of the humerus, to hold the arm bone in the socket of the scapula, of like your shoulder joint. And again, it's not so much for generating strength; it's just for holding the arm in place after you throw the ball, right? And which is also which is a critical part of the throwing motion. So it is normal as you get older, like we're talking 50s, 60s, for you to have degenerative rotator cuff. Like that happens often. You expect to see that in an MRI. This is what happens when you get older. This is a good example of an athlete that's going through so much, that using it so much that they're probably getting a 50-year-old shoulder at age 30, right? Which sucks. But it explains probably why you would think about retiring at this point. For it's been 11 years. That's not a bad run. It's a significant rehab to come back from that. And then you have to think, like, now I'm like 32, it's like 33, and it's not going to be the same afterwards. So I mean, to me, it makes sense why you would choose to retire at that point, because that'd be a really tough thing to come back from. So,
and that's a significant surgery. He'd miss all of 2025.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee he will be 100% on the other side of this surgery.
Yeah, no. So it makes sense. And plus, again, in 11 years, because you do have to start thinking about, he's at the age now where you would start thinking about life after football, right? And what am I going to do, and be able to play with the kids, and teach the kid to throw a football or something. And I want to be able to use my arm in order to do that, because there's some players that care for the NFL athletes after they retire is something they've really tried to improve, because it was really bad for a long time. It used to be you were just out of the league, and they would suffer all kinds of musculoskeletal problems, chronic pain problems, but also mental health. And they've really made a point of trying to improve that, and just making them aware of what it's going to be like when they're done. So I think that's sort of what came into play here.
Yeah. And this, like Geoff said, once this is like advanced degeneration, you can't really regress it back to a 30-year-old shoulder anymore. You can only work with how far along it's been breaking down.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't replace, we don't have anything that you can implant to replace a muscle, like that can generate strength or hold something in place. And the shoulder is really tough because it's the most mobile joint in the body. It's the least stable. And so those muscles are critical in terms of stabilizing the joint. So if they're not working, there's nothing we can make that could do the same job as those muscles.
And we know some people who had an advanced version of this same injury, and it's daily pain. Yeah. And there's a thought process of, my God, if this is it for the rest of my life, like I can't really put my hand above my head anymore. And we're talking young people who have 50 or 60 years to go, and they're thinking, this is it. My shoulder's only getting worse from here. So I totally understand the point that he's probably thinking, this is just going to keep getting worse. It's not like they're going to stop hitting him in the NFL. He's going to keep getting hit. This is his throwing shoulder. It's not his non-throwing shoulder. So it's under massive strain every time he throws the ball anyways.
Yeah. And I would look at it like, what would the next 2 years look like then? Right. So it's a surgery, significant rehab. I'm not playing. I don't know what it's going to be like when I come back. If I play, it's not going to be as good as I was before. And then maybe that's another 6 games, half a season I could play. I don't know, or if I get benched, or what's the team going to be like at that point? Yeah. And so that 2 years in your 30s compared to, like, I retire now and I just do whatever I want all the time with my family for the next 2 years, that would feel real different. So,
and isn't there something to be said for delaying the surgery if you can?
Yeah, which they've tried to do stuff like that, right? They've tried to do the rehab. That's what they were doing, I believe, up until now. They were trying to rehab.
Okay, I don't even mean trying to get back to football. I mean, for the health of the shoulder, you don't want to go in earlier than you have to surgically.
Right. Oh yeah. No, it's conservative. There's almost no surgeries. You're better afterwards, right? Like, we can't make anything as good as what the human body already has.
You're just less crappy.
Yeah. So it's not good. So it's if he could, he'll be doing sort of shoulder exercises and in like maintenance stuff probably the rest of his life
Yeah.
now. So
Yeah. So obviously anyone who's had a shoulder injury like this probably is nodding along, knowing exactly what we're talking about, and probably sympathize with his decision, realizing, yeah, this was a bad situation to be in. And for him to, okay, so then let's get to the contract thing. There's obviously information that he's foregoing $30 million in salary this year, but for him to have qualified to accept that salary, he would have had to follow through with the surgery, and he would have had to do dedicated rehab all year. Like that would be part of the terms of him receiving his salary. Obviously he wouldn't play, but he would have to go through the steps to try to get better. And I think that's when so when people are thinking he gave up 30 million, but after what we just discussed, he's thinking of the health of his body for the rest of his life. And he's made $200 million just in NFL salary. Who knows what else in endorsements. So he's probably okay financially as long as he hasn't wasted it. He's good, and his next 2 or 3 generations of his family are fine. So that's not the issue. The issue is his shoulder health. And so he retained his $10 million roster bonus he got in March, but he foregoes the 30 million by retiring. And that also frees up 30 million in cap space for the Saints. So good for the Saints. But yeah, so that's the postmortem on Derek Carr's career. I mean, I guess we could go quickly through his stats here.
Last thing just about the contract. I think that's a great example of, it's to give up 30 million sounds crazy to any human, that would be nuts. But it really does put it in perspective. First of all, he's made a lot of money. So like that 30 million, 30 you or I wouldn't say no to 30 million for any reason, whatsoever. But we haven't made $200 million before. So that's different. And I think it is a window into like what it's like being an NFL player, like and being that many injuries and that many surgeries. And do I really want to have another one? And and they're super competitive. They're all very, very competitive athletes, but it is not easy. And I remember when they were talking, like when Peyton Manning was near the last year of his career, after the game, he literally couldn't bend over and untie his shoes. Like it was in that limited and that much pain. And you don't want to be like that. Like this is the only body you get. And you're like, and so, but I think it's really, it obviously must be, quite the trade-off that to not get the 30 million, but have 2 years with your family, getting another surgery, not getting hit, not getting, trying to come back from a thing that's going to be super difficult, on a team you don't know what it's going to be like. And for a lot of stuff you can't control. It's one, like if the left tackle doesn't block someone, like you're going to get killed, like, and that's just
and it's not like he's in the middle of a dynasty. The Saints they're not going anywhere.
No. Yeah. So and it's last thing I'll say just about the Derek Carr before you start with the stats was a great example of something we talked about on an earlier show. Picked round 2, pick 36. So, those we talked this year about the draft, about someone getting picked later and doing well because he had some really good years. Like he was a good QB. Like he was
let's
good
get into
NFL
that.
QB.
Yeah. So his he's okay. He played 11 seasons, mostly with the Raiders. His career win-loss is 77 and 92.
Yeah, it's not great, but he didn't play on great teams.
Well, just let me finish.
All right, okay.
Jeff.
All right.
He's had 3
not used
winning.
To having 2 people on this show, are you?
Yes, right. Jesus, come in like you own the thing. 3 winning seasons out of 11, which is kind of. I was surprised. I thought he might have had more, but the Raiders have just been not that good.
Yeah.
But he himself is not a bad QB. His career completion percentage is like 65%, which
really
is
good.
What you want in the NFL. Yeah, career. So I mean, he's I was looking up his average, maybe 3,700 yards a season.
That was amazing. That blew me away because I was like, we became football fans at a time where 3,000 passing yards was really good. Like not everyone did that. That's like a top echelon of QBs.
Yeah, you'd say he's a top third with those numbers.
Yeah, top. Well, the 3,000 passing yards would have put you in the top third, I believe, of any QB any season. And he did it every single year except last year.
Yeah.
And he had 4 consecutive years of over 4,000 passing yards. So that's amazing. Like, that's
and his
really
career
good.
TD to interception rate's like a 23-10, but obviously he's had better years than that. But those are all, I think most teams, if you told me, or if you told a fan base, you had a QB with a 65% completion percentage, over a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, and north of 3,700 yards a year passing, you're like, okay, I'll take that guy.
Absolutely. And the most interceptions he ever threw in a year were 14, which really puts it also in perspective compared to some like Jameis Winston, who I think
some of the greats. Manning's worst seasons are way worse than that.
Right.
Same with Favre.
Yeah. And so that's, or Winston who could do that in a half a season. Right. So but yeah, no, like that, though, that's good. And
then it just shows you, I think, so my thought here as I was going through his stats and everything that happened is it's hard to play quarterback and stay healthy.
Yep.
Because you just get beat up your whole career. Like those injuries we listed started his very first year and just never stopped. Every year he had something significant.
And I also, I think we said this, but that's not uncommon. Like that's most QB. Like this is, I feel like, a pretty representative sample of injuries that QBs get, like all QBs.
Yeah, like was he, throughout his career, was he known as like a guy who got hurt a lot or just sort of average?
I never thought of him as someone that got hurt a lot.
No, me neither. Maybe we just weren't focused on his career enough.
He didn't miss a lot of games.
No, like some of those injuries he just played through.
We got to check that. He was. I'm gonna change that to say I think he was an Iron Man, because out of all the injuries that you listed, it looks like, according to this site, that he never missed a game for the first 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons he was in, and he missed one, and then one the next season. And then nothing again total for 6 years or so. Yeah. Like, so that was
all those injuries and he missed 7 games.
Yeah. So like that's actually quite the Iron Man streak.
Yeah. So the point is, it's really hard to play quarterback in the league and stay healthy. That's the first point. The second point is a quarterback as what you would say probably an upper third, somewhere between 10 and 15, if you were going to list him in quarterbacks in the league, can't save a bad franchise. Like he only had 3 winning seasons. The Raiders just couldn't figure themselves out, even when they had what seems to be a quarterback where you should, like, that sounds like a quarterback who should have been in the playoffs quite often. He has 1 playoff appearance and he lost.
That's crazy. 1 playoff appearance. Oh,
$200 million earned, good career stats. Like you said, Iron Man worked through all kinds of injuries and he only made the playoff once. So I guess if it's kind of I don't know what the story is here, a quarterback who maybe this is the narrative actually coming out of the draft talk. It matters where you land.
Yep.
You know, like this could be, it almost doesn't, it's both things, how good the quarterback actually is. But man, if the team's not good enough, you can be what should have been a multi-playoff type quarterback who just couldn't get there because the team was just never good enough.
Yeah. And I think that the other reminder for me is that it's hard to win the Super Bowl. You know, like the average fan are quick to point out like which QBs haven't won a Super Bowl and things like that. And it's
most
hard.
Of them haven't won, and they never will.
Most of them haven't, and it's hard. It's hard to win. It's hard to win in the playoffs. It's hard to win in the Super Bowl. Most people don't, and so like the lion's share of the population doesn't. You know, so that's a great example of someone he threw for over 4,000 yards 4 years in a row. Like that's amazing, and had 1 playoff appearance. Like it's hard. It's hard. That's why when the teams do it 2 to 3 years or something, like that's amazing. Because, you know,
I think we get caught up or just only notice the players who end up in the playoffs a lot and think of, or the best players, assume the best players must have playoff wins.
Yeah.
Like TJ Watt's never won a playoff game.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's been 4 times. And I don't know, Myles Garrett's record's got to be just as bad. He's maybe won a couple.
Yeah.
But we're talking about 2 of them. And now sticking with defensive ends, Max Crosby, is his career just going to be like, one of the great defensive ends who never won a playoff game?
NFL,
it doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right.
NFL is that's when, you know, when they've expanded the playoff in baseball, like for the different wild card teams in the NBA, it feels like 2/3 of the league make it in. That's actually probably from the player side a positive thing, you know, because there's, I don't know if I'm not advocating for a playoff expansion in the NFL, but like that's for those other sports, that's a reason, because baseball used to be you have to win the pennant. And that was the only
Which
way
is
you
ridiculous.
got in.
Yeah.
So there was thousands of players that never even sniffed the playoff, like because you didn't finish first in your division. But no, this is a good reminder of someone who was a good player, an all-pro player for some years, and one playoff appearance. Oh,
yeah, him and Kirk Cousins, between the two of them, they have one playoff win, and they've earned almost $500 million collectively.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I guess that leads us to finish this talk off, the Saints QB room. Oh boy. So we've got Jake Haener, Spencer Rattler, and Tyler Shuck. That's the QB room. Yeah. I thought Pittsburgh's QB room is bad. This is, I mean, we like Tyler Shuck. Obviously, you have no idea how they're going to turn out, but my guess, I mean, we know it's not Jake Haener.
Nope.
We're pretty sure it's not Spencer Rattler unless somehow he has a utter revelation.
Probably
so I guess
starting the season with Spencer, and hopefully he can mentor Shuck into getting some more, starting some.
What's he going to teach him? How to throw picks? So, I mean, my guess is you just roll the dice with Shuck. Oh, well, okay. You want conspiracy theorists now?
Sure.
They're angling for Arch Manning. because where did Archie Manning Sr. play most of his career?
New Orleans.
Yes. So how cool would it be to see Manning on a New Orleans jersey again?
Man, you've mentioned that before. We talked about that off air, that the number of fan bases for teams that are hoping for Arch Manning is significant.
Yes. The Giants want him. There's a contingency of Giants fans that I'm aware of who somehow think the Jackson Dart pick is still a tank job to try to get Arch Manning because they are nostalgic about Eli Manning and 2 Super Bowls with the Manning name on the jersey. Okay, fine. I think that's a bit of a stretch because why would you waste a pick on Dart? But then this one, now that Carr's done, I could see how people are thinking, forget it, just tank and let's get Arch. Because that means it's just such a perfect story. Like Archie Manning to Archie Manning.
Yeah, right? It would be.
And I mean, the Browns, whatever the Browns mess is, who knows what's going on there. I postulated maybe they're angling for Arch Manning next year because they spent so little on QBs this year. But really now, because of this, to me, I think the next round of speculation will be Arch Manning to the Saints next year.
Here's the last thing I'll just say about the tanking, because that's really a topic for another show. The number of 5 wins is a crappy season, right? We think we can agree on that. That's 5 and 12.
Oh yeah, it's pretty bad.
So the number of teams that had 5 or fewer wins last year were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams.
Is an NFL record.
Is it 5 or less, right?
Yeah, so it's the most ever. Yeah.
So if you like that, only one of them is going to get the top pick. So,
I don't even know if the Saints own their first round pick next year. I'm assuming they do.
I don't know, but I mean, like this is not a good sport to tank for a first round pick, because those are between 3 and 5 wins is, so. Well,
and we keep saying tank. The theory is that no one ever tries to tank in the NFL. It's almost impossible to attempt to. But with this QB room, I don't even think you have to attempt to. I think it's just going to happen.
No, and even if they're really bad, like even if they have 5 or fewer wins, it's still they still could get a pick in the top 10, which is not Arch Manning, right? Like they're
right.
You got to be only one team gets that pick.
You're right. You've got to be the worst.
Yeah, but there's going to be at least 5 to 6 other that's like a less than 15% chance of getting the pick.
Who are the other teams that were so bad last year that actually didn't really even try to upgrade in the draft? Like I would suggest that the Browns actually attempted to upgrade. I would suggest the Giants. I mean, they got Russell Wilson. He's at least good for, I don't know, 7 or 8 wins, maybe.
Yeah, I guess that's a good topic for another thing. We should do that another day. Yeah. But like who are the Super Bowl contenders? Maybe we should do who's the 5 and under
contenders. Yeah. Well, I mean, right now,
there are some.
Since the Steelers that's still completely up in the air about Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Maybe the Steelers, I mean, the 2 worst QB rooms right now are the Steelers and the Saints.
Yes.
If they both, I haven't done the research. If they both own their number 1 pick, I'd right at this moment put them both in the front running for the number 1 pick next year.
Yeah, Cleveland. I mean, just because they've got 2 rookies too. Like I like the rookies, but
yeah, they got 5 different guys in there. Who knows what's going to go on there? Yeah, I don't know. They could still be in the running too. I mean,
yeah,
there's
Jacksonville
no
went
guarantee.
4-13, and they're going to have the same.
Yeah, but they're not going to pick. They've just dumped $270 million on Lawrence. They're not going to pick Arch Manning with Lawrence there with that contract. So,
but I'm just that's true. Okay.
Oh, you mean well, if they get the number, they'll trade it away if they're not going to need Arch Manning. So, anyways, so that's the postmortem on Derek Carr's career, and now it's who knows what's going to happen with the Saints. This QB room is a complete question mark. All right, a good place to leave this one.
Yep.
All right. For Geoff Dover, I'm John Barban, and that's your Saturday versus Sunday podcast.